Good morning, Anu. Thank you for joining us today on our Lift the Lid series for entrepreneurs and founders.
Yeah.
I was just actually checking out your LinkedIn earlier, and I just realized we went to the same high school, Victoria Junior College.
Wow, I didn't know that.
How
That's
did we not know that all these years?
all these years.
Being on the partnership team, yeah. So, I think I was maybe one batch before you.
Oh wow. Oh wow. There's lots of good stories to talk about from there.
Good stories, yeah. Anyways, but more importantly, I think just a quick sort of setting the stage for why we brought you in here. You're someone I deeply admire because you've made some bold, courageous changes in your career journey, and I loved how you sort of set this out in your own LinkedIn, right? You call it the Bet on Myself incorporated business. So Anu and I, we used to be colleagues in the Google partnerships team. And then I remember the one fine day you came along and you're like, I'm leaving. And I'm going off and I'm gonna start something. Not quite sure what yet, but I'm gonna start something. And that has just stuck in my mind. And so for me, it was just the courage, right, for you to actually take that step. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and what it's been like on Bet Myself Incorporated?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much, firstly, for having me. Super excited to be doing this and sharing my story. I don't normally do these kind of things, but when you mentioned that you wanted to talk about the founder journey and the sort of story and what I've gone through, I was very excited to share the story because I think it can be pretty helpful for other people, and I've shared this with a few folks in that way. But yeah, I mean, to give you a bit of background on myself, like I grew up here in Singapore, usual local kid, followed the straight path, straight A student type thing. Went to Oxford to study engineering, ended up in a good corporate job in consulting, then ended up at Google, spent 8 years at Google before I made the big life switch. And I was doing fine, to be very honest. There was nothing wrong. My career was going really well. I was very happy at Google. I had 3 kids. I had a happy wife and a happy home. But that itch was always there to potentially do something different. And I sort of realized that life's too short, and sometimes if you don't just take a leap of faith and plunge, it will never happen. And I realized that Google life was very good and very comfortable, and the longer I stayed at Google, the harder it would be for me to leave. So I kind of said to myself that, hey, I'm 35, and if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And how badly do I actually want to go start a company? Like, let's imagine like 20 years later, I end up becoming a VP at Google, and I'm super senior guy and made a lot of money. Will I regret not having tried to start my own company? And the answer to that question was, I definitely would regret. I would regret not having tried, no matter how successful I am in a corporate career. And I firmly
Yeah.
believe that as you get older, it becomes harder to make these changes and to take a big
Yeah.
risk on your career. So I felt now is the best time as ever. It was COVID. COVID was a good time for this kind of introspection and thinking, actually. And
Yeah.
I felt that, hey, like if I start a company now, I can start it from my bedroom. Nothing really changes. And to be very honest,
Working in your bedroom.
yeah, to be very honest, I left Google, and the next day, I was sitting in the same chair, in the same space,
All right.
on the same screen, on a Hangout, on a Gmail calendar, just
Yeah,
not a
yeah, yeah.
calendar, and doing the same thing. It was just different work, and I was very excited about it. But COVID made it much easier to actually do it. To be honest.
Mm. So, sometimes there are these like events or that realization. So, just wondering for you, and I love the idea that this happened during COVID time and there was a lot of introspection. Was there sort of that was there a trigger point for that? Sort of thought that, if I don't start my own thing, I will regret this.
Yeah, I mean, if to share a personal story, I went through a bit of a health crisis while COVID was happening. I had to go through an operation. There was an abscess that happened in my glute muscle area, which is something like a muscle tissue
Wow.
problem. Anyway,
Yeah.
long story short, I went for an operation and didn't know if I'll come back with 2 legs. Um,
Wow.
so that was a big moment of truth for me because
Yeah.
I was going under general anesthesia. I didn't know if I'll wake up and be had one leg or two legs. And you don't think about these things. So that at that time, the thoughts that go through your mind are, you just want to be able to do things that you could do when you have two legs. That's not
Yeah.
what you think about. Uh,
Yeah.
I then woke up and I was super grateful that I had two legs, and that was all. That was all I cared about. And that was a turning point for me in life in general. This was before I decided to start a company. This was even while I was at Google. It was about a year before I started the company.
Mm.
And I then realized that hey, life is such that you have to be very grateful for everything you get. And God gave me a second chance with two legs. Like make the most of it. And
Yeah.
part of making the most of it was to not have any regrets.
Yeah.
So if it meant trying to start a company, then like it's a life experience, go try it. Because the way I see it is you look back when you're 80 or 85, fingers crossed you live till that age. You look back and what you look back on is not the sort of slogging in the office and the hard nights, and you don't even look at the money, you look at life experiences.
Mm.
So for me, like this experience of leaving Google, starting a company, setting up my own logo and company name and building up a team and setting up an office, like this is an experience that I'll remember for life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that sort of medical situation happened to you, but I can see why it was such um uh, a pivotal moment, and it shifted a lot of things for you on like what's truly important.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So what did you fear losing the most in leaving this career track that honestly had been going really well? I mean, I remember, you were very well liked in the company. You could have stayed on and made director, let's be honest. What did you fear losing the most there?
Safety, stability, success,
Mm-hmm.
those three things. I was
Mm.
very successful at Google. I was known as one of the, I mean,
Yeah.
I was highly rated, good reputation. Everybody felt I was, on a big track. I was getting promoted really quickly. I was getting paid really well. There was everything positive you could think about in a corporate job I was getting.
Yeah, you left on a high. I feel like most people say, oh, they come to the point where they're just like, maybe I'm upset with the job, etc., and then that prompts them to go. Yours was a situation. I remember thinking like, everything's going well for Anu,
Yeah,
and he's stepping off at that absolute high.
everything was going super well. I mean, I was on track to get promoted again, and I was,
Yeah,
it's great. I just stick around for another year, and I'll get promoted again and get to the next level, and so on and so forth. Right? Like great manager,
yep,
great manager's manager, great VP. Everything was going really well for me. Um, and so that success, you get sucked into it, and you get addicted to it to an extent. Part of it, I felt that it's just too comfortable, and I wasn't then learning enough or taking enough of a risk in my career to see what else could be out there and really betting on myself. It just became easy for me at Google after.
yeah,
So I feared losing that. I feared losing the success and the stability and knowing the path to success. Like I knew when there's a new project or a new product to launch, I had launched about 6 different products.
mm,
There was the next new product, Assistant, Firebase, PWA, AMP, search, whatever it is, when there was a new product to launch, I knew like follow these 5, 6 steps and it'll be successful. And then I will be successful. I knew the playbook. Um, but losing that was a very scary thought because, I think Steve Jobs said this, right? When he left Apple and he was kicked out of Apple and then he started his own company, which was not Apple. He said that that was the most creative time in his life because he went to becoming a beginner again and he went to becoming a starter again where he didn't know anything. And he didn't know how to be successful. So I kind of felt that when I left Google. I felt like, oh my God, I have no idea how to start a company. I have no idea what I'm doing.
yeah,
I'm not getting paid. I've got no like salary, no stability, no path. There's no clear path. It's like it's all sort of figure it out on your own
yeah.
and uncharted territory. Like that was very scary and fearful time for me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So then, if you don't mind, let's touch on the sort of mental narratives and your well-being as you embarked on being a founder or on the Bet Yourself project. Can you share what was some of the greatest source of anxiety that you faced as you then decided to become a founder? And how did you actually work through that?
I think there was you are on a high when you start a company. Like firstly, when you quit from Google, if you it was like an active choice, right? So I was not impacted from the layoff.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
left.
yeah, yeah.
You're on a big high that you've made this decision, and there's like this future possibility, like endless possibilities. Then you start a company, you're on an even bigger high because it's like, wow, I started my own company and it's like my own name and my own brand name and I'm the CEO and there's an ego aspect to it. I won't lie to you, there's a big ego aspect to it, right? Most founders have an ego for a reason. And they want to change the world and they are passionate about something and they have this idea that they're really driven by. I had all of that. And so that positivity and high kind of masks a lot of the challenges in the early days. First 6 months, first 8 months, super high. And then the reality starts to sink in. And so the anxiety and the worries come after that. Like I did fundraising, and to be honest, I was quite lucky. Like it was a good time, 2021, to fundraise. I was able to raise money pretty easily. I raised money before I even started a company. And
Wow.
people were like, I love your idea, here's money. And I had like 7, 8 people do that to me. And I was like, oh shit, I better start this company because people are like putting money into an idea that is not even a company. And so I started the company. I raised the money, then I started the company.
Okay, wow. That we may need a session separately on that alone. I'm sure other founders would love to hear that story. Okay.
Whole different story, whole different story.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I ended up in that situation where I was very lucky then, very fortunate that when I started the company, the money was already there. Then I was able to bring in co-founders, bring in some people, got into Y Combinator. That was another big high. Then a lot of people were like, wow, it's a YC company. More people invested in the company. So all this positivity happened. And so I didn't really feel anxiety at that time. The anxiety sunk in only when it was like, right, we have the money, we have the team, we have all this stuff. Now we need to build a product and launch a product. And it's hard. And I've never built a product. Like I've worked at Google and I've launched products, and I can say that I built a product, but I wasn't the one actually building it. There's a
Yeah, yeah.
team, there's an engineering team, there's a program management team, and we were partnership people helping to build and launch something. But there was a bigger infrastructure and bigger setup that was building the product. Now I am the boss and I'm the CEO of the company. It's on me to build this whole thing. And everyone's looking at me. The engineers are looking at me. The CTO is looking at me for direction and vision. And when they get stuck, they're looking at me, and I'm like, I don't know. Like when you have coding issues, like how am I going to figure this out? And so that's when the anxiety first started kicking in for me, where I realized what it meant to be the leader and the buck stops with you. That was very challenging for me.
Yeah. And so how did you work through that then? Sort of, especially when you say like the not knowing, especially, you came from a place where you already knew the playbook, you could like eyes closed lah, launch things. And now you were in this situation where you kind of didn't have the answers for everything. So how did you work through that?
I I have had lots of ups and downs, and I think many founders shy away from talking about this. Like if you look on LinkedIn, everyone talks about the amazing stuff that founders have done, and I've raised money, and I've launched a product, and my ARR, and my revenue growth, and my whatever, right? Like so, there's all these highs, but no one talks about the lows. And I think the founder journey is one of extreme highs and extreme lows. So I've gone through that cycle multiple times in my founder journey. I've gone through like massive lows where
Yeah.
I have this anxiety that just like overwhelms me, and I can't sleep and I can't eat, and I'm like freaking out. And
Mm,
I think that's something that I didn't do a very good job dealing with. Uh,
mm,
Being a first time founder, there's no history, there's no like, here's how it works.
mm.
Um,
And so how did you, I guess, get through that then? Were there friends, family?
I
Was
think
there a support network that stepped in?
family plays a big role. My wife is a superstar. I mean, she what she says is, I was taking care of 3 children. Now I take care of 4 children. And like I talk about the startup as a baby, as like 4 children, and she's like, no, 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 it's not the startup, it's you. Because like I have
Yeah.
to take care of you and all of your crazy ups and downs. And when you're high, you're super high, and when you're down, you're super low. And that's
Yeah.
actually very different from to a founder versus a corporate situation. In a corporate situation, your highs are high, but not like insanely high, and your lows are low, but not like insanely low.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
So,
in a
so
in a founder situation, it's extreme. There's no cap to both sides. And so mentally dealing with it is not straightforward. I think what helped me was family,
Yeah.
uh, friends to an extent, but even friends don't get it. Like people who are not founders, the people who really help were other founders.
Mm.
I think there's a small but growing network of founders in Singapore where people are willing to have open conversations,
Mm.
where people are willing to be vulnerable. I'm
Yeah.
part of a few of these communities where I can go in and say that I have no idea how to do this, and I'm freaking out, and my investors are after me, and like, please help. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
talk about that. Asian culture doesn't talk about that, right? Like failure, not knowing. This is not part of Asian culture to share because it makes you look bad.
Mm.
You
Mm.
feel like you're less of a person. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
when
So, so was that the narrative sort of you had or mindset you had to let go and come to terms with?
totally, totally let go, and it helped. It helped being open and honest with founders. It's like a weight off your shoulders, just being honest, because you can't do it with your team. You can't do it
Yeah.
with co-founders. You can sometimes, but you can't always.
Freak them out even more.
It will freak them out even more.
Yeah.
You can't do it with your investors, family to an extent, but after that they don't get it.
Yeah.
So only other people who really get it are other founders.
Other people who have gone through that sort of experience as well. Yeah. And so was there any sort of switch tracks a little bit? Like what's maybe skill or competency of yours do you think would you say was most critical in getting you to where you are now then today?
I think it's a skill and competency I didn't have that I'm now building. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm building. You need to be way more resilient. You need to have way more perseverance, just
Hmm.
just grit as a founder. I think those are skills that I thought I had being this great whatever superstar at Google. I thought I had those, but no, I didn't. I really didn't. Because
Yeah.
with Google there was a massive support structure that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And so I built these qualities over time. I think also just like the ability to deal with failure is a new thing for me. I was the classic Singapore kid, always did well, study hard, get good marks, get into great university, get into a good job, do well, work hard, get promoted. It was always like a positive. I never really failed as such. And as a founder, you're failing almost every day. And that's a
Yeah.
completely new experience for me. Completely new experience for me.
Yeah.
My playbook was work hard, success.
Yeah.
Now it's like work hard, fail. Because work hard doesn't equal to success by default. As a
Yeah.
founder, before the founder life, it's like you do this and you do X, you get Y. As a founder, you do X, you might get one of 100 outcomes afterwards.
Wow. Okay. And so how do you go through that then? Like with any tips and tricks you may want to offer to
I
people
mean,
contemplating this journey?
yeah, for me, I learned through experience. I think the first time where, let's say, a deal failed, I was like, oh my God. The first time our product crashed, I was like, oh my God, like, what the heck? Like, how did we lose all the data? How did the product crash? Because at Google, that doesn't happen, right? Like, yeah, there's bugs, but you don't just lose all customer data. Like, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a startup, it can happen. And then it freaks you out. You're like, what the heck? Like, how did this happen? Right? And my engineers are very chilled about it. My engineers who work in startups are like, yeah, it happened. And I was like, how are you so chilled about it? Because they've been in startups. Today, 2.5 years later, when bugs happen, when things crash, fires happen, I'm like, yeah, fine. Like, it's part of life.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is just through experience where now, like, there's lots of fires and you just get better at addressing the. And as a founder, you end up with lots more fires and then you're just like overwhelmed.
Okay. So it sounds like being a founder, you need to be comfortable with having mini fires around you.
Yeah, all the time.
Mm.
You can never put out all the fires. Impossible.
Mm. Hmm.
Impossible. As a founder, it's impossible to put out all the fires. And so just accept that you're going to let some of them burn and just pick the biggest ones and deal with that. And then tomorrow wake up again and do the same thing again. You know,
Okay. Beautiful. So, what's one thing then you wish you would have done differently or could have done differently in your journey as a founder?
I think I could have done a much better job taking care of myself. I have a coach, so I have an executive coach, which is I would highly recommend all founders like have a coach. It
Yeah.
helps. And I asked the coach very early in my founder journey, like, what's one mistake founders make that I shouldn't make? And she said, you should take care of yourself. And I was like, oh, I take care of myself. Like, I exercise, I meditate, I journal, I have all these practices. It all fell apart in the founder journey. Like, I actually was in a very good place at Google. I
Yeah.
figured out a good balance. I was like, physical health, mental health, everything was balanced for me. And then when I became a founder, it just all fell apart. And
Yeah.
that was a big mistake. So what I would do differently is like, no, 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 those routines are super important.
Yeah.
Stick to those routines no matter what.
Yeah.
Stick to those routines, stick to your exercise, stick to your self-care, mental health, physical health. Stick to like, I stopped meeting friends and I love meeting friends. And I stopped meeting friends because I'm like busy, right? I have to work.
That's crazy because I know you're such a social person. So to hear that you had to sort of disconnect it from that side of it, I
Yeah.
mean,
And at the time I justified it by saying I have to because I have to work. But the reality is if I met friends and was happy and disconnected from work, I probably would have been in a better mental state,
yeah,
which would help me deal with the fires better.
yeah, yeah, understand. So now having gone through this journey, what would you consider to be the least understood aspect of becoming a founder? Because exactly like you say on LinkedIn, we see the great stories, everyone celebrates and stuff. What would you say is actually the most misunderstood or least understood?
That it's lonely.
Hmm.
Founder journey is very lonely because nobody else understands your position. Being a CEO is very lonely. I always thought CEOs, wow, like glamorous and look at Sundar Pichai and he's got 100 people around him and blah blah blah. Actually, it's super lonely because nobody else is in your position and nobody else understands, and you're dealing with stuff that nobody else wants to deal with. Like
Yeah.
all the easy to deal with stuff gets dealt with before it gets to you. So the stuff that
It's
gets
escalating to you, right?
yeah, because if I had easier stuff to deal with, I'll feel good because I'm like making progress and dealing with stuff. But the easy stuff, my CTO has dealt with it, or my CBO has dealt with it, or my designer has dealt with it, or somebody, my product manager has dealt with it. It's only the stuff that nobody's able to deal with comes to me. And then it's like, oh shit, how do I deal with it? Because all these smart people can't deal with it, but now I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
You end
Yeah.
up being in a very lonely position. And in many cases, you end up being in a position where you don't know what to do and don't have the answers. And so, as a founder, you have to keep learning. You have to keep putting yourself out there. You have to get comfortable. I can tell you, I'm still not comfortable with this. I think humanity is not built to be comfortable with this.
Yeah.
Living outside your comfort zone and being embracing and comfortable with change. People don't like change by default, and people like to be in a comfort zone and feel safe. As a founder, you're always out of your comfort zone and there's always change. So just that is a very different mindset and a very different place to be, which is a very stark contrast to corporate life.
Absolutely. It's funny because I reflect sometimes. I think corporate life, we get paid and rewarded on fixing problems. So there is this idea of needing to know in order to do that. But I don't know of many places where they where staff or employees are rewarded for figuring things out
Yeah,
uh, when they don't know the answers. So, and especially as you say, becoming a founder, that really gets accentuated, right? You're in this zone where, as you say, all the hard problems are on your plate because nobody else could fix them already. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay. Um, are there any achievements or milestones that you consider rewarding as part of this journey to become a founder?
Oh yeah, lots. I mean, lots. As I said, we've talked about the lows. The highs are very high. Like fundraising is a massive high. Oh my God, I raised money at this valuation, and this amazing senior investor wants to back me. and say all good things to you. And then there's this other amazing angel who's now putting money into you, right? So that's a huge high. And it's a big achievement. Like raising money is a big achievement. Then you get the press and the PR and all of that jazz that comes with it, which is also a big high. Building a product is a big high. It's challenging, but the day that it actually launches and you kind of use it and you're like, wow, this thing works, right? That's a huge high. When the first user randomly finds your product and starts using
Yeah.
it, right? It's like, oh, I built this.
Name it. You frame that user's name.
Yeah, like it's a huge high. Like, when we launched Videofy and
Yeah.
you reached out to me saying, hey, I tried this out and it was really exciting and I found it very useful. That's a big high.
Mm.
Right? As you have those dark days, you also have these super happy days.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we we launched on Product Hunt, and Product Hunt is this like big
Yeah.
space where people launch products. We came second globally on Product Hunt on the day of launch.
Mm.
That's a big high. It's a big achievement. Uh,
Yeah.
we got into Y Combinator. That's another big high. So there's lots of achievements and milestones. I mean, hiring some amazing people. There's some amazing people I've hired, and I'm like, wow, this person wants to work for me. Like, that's great. You know, I feel really humbled by that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of good things that you get as a founder. And so that's why I keep saying like the highs are very high and the lows are very low. And
Mm.
finding a way to moderate that, self-moderate is actually the key.
Mm-hmm. I'll just say this. Those highs you talk about, like for many people in the founder stage, they are absolute milestones to reach. And I just love how you've always stayed grounded, despite the success. I mean, let's be honest, right? This is a success. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean like it's a journey, right? So I talk about this in my team as well. Like in a startup journey, there's multiple steps. Start
Mm.
a company, tick. Raise money, tick. Get co-founders, okay, tick. Then it's like build a product, launch a product, tick, tick. Get revenue, okay, tick. Now build a P&L. That's the stage that we're at. So we've
Yeah.
achieved like multiple different steps in the
Yeah.
journey. And we're at the step when the next step is building a P&L and growing the business and all that kind of stuff. But at least we've made it through that much.
This is the playbook. This is the golden part of the entire recording. It's this playbook. How to start a business. I'm gonna like immortalize your words for others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, we come to this sort of part. Thank you so much for sharing your journey so far. But like, if we talk about advice that you would give to others who may be considering entrepreneurship or becoming a founder, the truth is a lot of individuals also hesitate, especially, you did it at 35. We consider that, okay, like you're young, but mid-age maybe.
Yeah. Of course.
How would you, talk to folks who are hesitating in taking the step because of financial concerns? Like, how did you manage those concerns for yourself?
I firstly would say that entrepreneurship and founder journey is not for everyone. I think a lot of people glamorize it. And so when people say that, hey, I'm thinking of starting a company, it's like, great, you should do it. No. Like, you, you
Oh my
should
gosh.
you should talk to lots of people who are balanced, who have done it before. And if you talk to most founders, the problem is when people talk about starting a company, they talk to people who have not started a company. And so when you talk to people who have not started a company and you say, I want to start a company, they say, great, that's going to be awesome because, why not? You talk to founders who started a company, hey, should I start a company? Most founders will tell you, don't do it because of just how crazy and hard it is. And a good test of a founder, someone who's ready to start a company is like you have like 100 founders telling you don't do it and you do it anyway, then you're ready. And
I love that litmus test.
I say this because I didn't do this. And that's why I was shocked because I spoke to lots of people who are in my network who are all from Google or partners or friends. Very few founders in my network, and so everyone's like, "This is a great idea. You should totally do it."
Yeah.
If I spoke to more founders, I would have had a more of a reality check of what it's actually like, and then maybe I wouldn't have started. Maybe I still would have started, but I would have gone in with a more holistic perspective of the journey because the journey of building a company and starting a company, only founders know it. And you know that entrepreneurs and founders are like this, are rare. They're not the norm, they're rare.
Yeah.
So the
Absolutely.
likelihood of you speaking to a founder or an entrepreneur about starting a company is lower than talking to somebody who's not done it.
Mm,
So bias and probability will always give you a lot of like, yes, you should totally do it.
mm,
But
mm.
like, make the effort to go and talk to people who have done it. Like, talk to at least 10 of them,
Yeah.
hear the real shit that they go through, and then decide if you're ready for it. And I think that's a bigger thing than just financial. We'll talk about the financial aspect, but that's a bigger thing because it's like, oh my God, your life's going to go upside down. Mental health, physical health, challenges, failures, all the things we spoke about. I had no idea.
Mm,
I had no idea. I was lucky that I was willing to be open about it and found other founders early in my journey that I could talk about it. But now I'm very open about it to other people. I'm like, hey, this is what founder life really is like. Let's not just talk about the good stuff. Here's what the whole founder life is like.
yeah. Yeah.
And so I talk about that. Now, that's one thing. The financial aspect is a definite aspect to consider. Like it's a big, in a way, it's a step down. In a way, it could be a step up. It depends how you see things.
Mm-hmm.
If you value notional value, like I own 50% of a company worth X million, that's more money than what you probably have in the bank. That could make you feel really rich. But at the same time, your salary is like minimal or none. So the actual money is much lower, but the notional value is much higher. And so it depends what your mindset towards finance is like. If you care about money in the bank and a steady paycheck and money coming in every month, then you should be very careful about becoming a founder because that's not a guarantee. But if you think about notional value, yeah, founder life can be very rewarding from a notional value perspective. And that can eventually translate into real value, but that journey is like 5, 10 years.
And that means it's when you cash out of the business or you somehow exit, right? Okay.
And that journey is 5, 10 years. So you got to be ready for a 5, 10 year journey. Right? For me, when I started, I did the maths and I said, okay, I have about 4 years worth of runway, which means I can maintain my current lifestyle, my current expenditure, take care of my family, all of that stuff for 4 years without having any salary. And so the maximum time that I'm going to be a founder with no salary is 4 years.
Okay. So you time boxed it by sort of looking at your burn rate against your.
And then when I raised money, I started to pay myself. When I raised more money, I started to pay myself more. And then at what, maybe about a year ago or 6 months ago, I started paying myself enough to cover all my costs. So I don't eat into savings. But that's like 2 years later. So now I'm at a point where I'm not eating into my runway anymore, but I'm not adding to my savings either. It's just neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So the
Interesting.
way I see runway now is if tomorrow I have to shut the company, because that's a realistic scenario in a founder journey, if it
Yeah.
fails, how much time do I have before I need to start earning money again? Because it's a tough market, it's a tough job environment, whatever, right? So I have 18 months of runway. That means I've got 18 months to find a job. Do I feel comfortable with that? If I feel comfortable with that, it's okay. Then keep going on the founder journey. Whenever it fails, if it fails, then you've got 18 months to figure things out. So that's how I think about it, which makes me feel, for me, it makes me feel more comfortable. For other people, it might make them feel more scared. I don't know. Depends.
Mm, okay. And one final question then, I guess, what skills would you think are really important for founders to cultivate in order for them to thrive, if they decide that they want to go on this journey?
I go back to like perseverance is the number one thing, like just not giving up. Many companies shut down. In fact, most startups fail not because the company failed, it's because the founders eventually gave up. And people don't admit it. People don't admit it. They don't admit that I gave up. But the reality is companies fail because people give up. It's more common that that happens than like the company actually failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have the resilience and the perseverance to keep going no matter what the cost, no matter what the odds? No matter how many failures, keep going, keep going, keep going. Like that quality is the most important quality for a founder. Um, and I don't think I still have it. Like I still have moments where I'm like, I want to give up. And many founders have those moments. The only question is, do you pull the trigger and give up, or do you just like power through it somehow? And I've had it at least 3 times where I've decided that I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So far, I've decided to continue.
And each time you decide to continue, what was the draw or what was the pull there that kept you on the journey?
Different things. The first time it was investors have backed me and believed in me, so like I should see it through for their sake. Um, then it was the team. It's like I don't want to. If I give up, I'm giving up on this team, and this team believes in me, and this team believes in what we're doing. So why should I give up? Uh, Most recently, it was we built a product, and the product has users, and the users are paying revenue. So like, if we give up and pull the plug, then that all that shuts, right? So I think
Yeah.
us to stop or do something different would be a tactical decision. If there was a opportunity that was an outsized opportunity like an M&A or something, there was a strategic reason to do it, then we'd probably do it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we feel we can keep going.
Yeah. So, I come back to the original, what you called yourself, which was the Bet on Myself Incorporated project. What's your biggest takeaway I know you're still on it, but what's your biggest takeaway so far, having embarked on the Bet on Myself project?
It's humbling,
Mm.
very humbling. I didn't think I didn't think that I was an arrogant person, like egoistic person. I didn't think of myself that way, and I don't think people thought of it that way. But if I do self-reflection, I was not very humble as a person. The founder journey has made me much more humble as a person,
Wow.
and I think that is a good thing. Generally speaking, I think that's a good thing. And the founder journey, because of the failures and the setbacks and the challenges, it makes me more humble. It also actually makes me value what I had at Google more. In fact, people talk to me about leaving Google like, okay, now people talk after they've been impacted, which is not a choice, it happened to you. But the first year and a half, people would talk to me and say that, hey, I'm thinking about leaving and I'm thinking about doing something else. What's life like on the other side, and how did you make the decision to quit? And I talk to them and I'm like, firstly, you should realize what you're getting at Google and value it more than you do today. Because I definitely didn't value it enough. And that comes from being humble. Like it's like you take it for granted. You take a lot of things for granted that you have. The support structure, the perks,
Yeah.
the everything, right? The team, the people who support you, the manager, it's all stuff you take for granted. You take everything away and it's like, wow, now I need to figure things out myself. It's much harder. So it just makes you more humble, and it makes you feel more grateful for things you have, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. It's like an appreciation, right, for what you have at
Yeah,
that point in life. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Anu, for the wise words. I think also for your authenticity in sharing, because I'm a mini entrepreneur, nowhere at the same scale of what you are, but I have also some of the stuff you said here has really resonated, right? That it is a pretty lonely journey. It is you miss that support structure.
Yeah.
I mean, money aside, but just knowing that you have a support structure to go do things. I think it's underrated. People don't realize how valuable that is, as opposed to trying to go at it on your own. So yeah, thanks for your open sharing.
No, of course, my pleasure. Look, I'm very happy to share and always open to another conversation and grab coffee and chat more.
Yeah. And maybe another series where you talk about the fundraising part, because that I can see itself. It's a exciting topic for people to know.
Happy to share.
If they pass that litmus test, is to say, right, I haven't spoken to 10 to 100 people and you still want to do it, then on that part, like how to approach that. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. Fundraising is something I talk to people about a lot, and we share stories. So yeah, happy to chat about it.
Okay, cool.